Hello. So I'm going to take you through the process of making a tincture specifically for this moment in this time. A lot of the research from herbalists I've been reading for COVID-19 support is there's a lot of Asian herbs, and that's where there's been the most study done. And I wanted to go out into my own backyard and work with some of the antivirals and the lung support and the adaptogens that I know in the Pacific Northwest. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm going to bring you along on the journey. And the fun thing about this is, it might be as simple as getting to know what's growing in your yard or in the woods behind your house, or even just getting to know one plant ally from the recipe I've kind of put together, and working with it specifically is also helpful. They can all stand alone or they can work together. I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going on over here. So sometimes I do put some like rocks and gems in what I'm making. So that one's a smoky quartz. And then this one is a citrine. And I started off with all kinds of ideas about what I was going to do. I don't think they're actually going to go in specifically, but they did want to be present on the making table, if you will. So smoky quartz is specifically grounding and calming and alchemizing what we call negative energies, so like the fear and the anxiety. And the citrine harmonizes the mental body with the spiritual plane. So it kind of is holding space for where are we going as a society, as a human community in the wake of this. And looking at it, is there an opportunity here to build the kind of world that our hearts think is possible? If we can hold on to that, in the coming months. This is an artist's conch, and I found it yesterday. It smells amazing, and usually you can take something and draw or write on the bottom of them, and this one wants to be a blank slate. Again, it's not going in the medicine that we're making, but everything that's around it, all of your intent, all of your activity in the last couple of days is in the morphic field, is in the resonance of what we're making. It's in part of the frequency. And so what this feels like to me is it's almost like a big shell. It's like a potent listening that comes from the heart and not from the head. And that's the place where we're going to need to create from. So getting into the medicines themselves, this is what's known as usnea, or old man's beard, or witch's hair. And it's the one that hangs, you'll see it hanging from the tree branches in the Pacific Northwest. And it's a lichen, so it's a symbiotic relationship between a fungi, so like the mushroom kingdom, and an algae, so like the plants that grow in the sea. And so what that means is lichen were the first terrestrial organisms. So the algae can perform photosynthesis and make the food. The fungi gives it a physical body, and so they're this like synergistic community. And so when I put together things like this, I like to look at what's the whole story, what's the ancient picture, what is the role in an ecosystem of this being that we're working with, as well as like what we know of chemical constituents and medicinal properties. Because then we're working with the whole essence of the plant, or in this case, the lichen. So these can be very, very rare. It's best to harvest them when they've come down on branches in winter storms, and not to pull them off the trees directly. They take a long, long, long time to grow and can be hundreds of years old. So all the things we're working with today, I'm just going to kind of put in the jar. Now, this is the same, it's possibly slightly different genetic variant, but if you look at the vibrancy of this compared to this is something that started to decay. The life force is gone. So it's not going to go in. That when you look between the two, this is something that is disease causing and not supporting of life. It's on its way to becoming something else already. So that is our first thing. We're going to just kind of make a giant layer cake in this jar. And our next thing is the Loberia pulmonaria. So this is a lungwort lichen. So it's the same kind of being as this. This grows up high in the trees as well, and you can even see there's something in herbal medicine called the doctrine of signatures, and it says that if something looks like what you are treating, then that is the part of the body that it will heal. So if you think this is a lung-based sickness, this is a plant that is an amazing, well, not a plant, it's a lichen that is an ally in this work. So this one, I woke up, I soaked it in water. It does kind of go dormant, so it will go, it will look more like the back side of it. You'll see it again. You want to harvest the stuff that's fallen to the floor of the forest. You don't want to take it out of its habitat on the branches of the trees. Again, it takes a long time to grow. So we're not gonna work with all of it. We're gonna leave some because everything can be dried and saved for later. So there's gonna be no waste here. But that's, I think, as much as we're going to use of that. So next, sort of in our line here, is these are the licorice fern rhizomes. They're all washed up. We're not using the fern themselves. These guys just wanted to come along and be part of our process. So with the licorice ferns rhizomes, these are unseen community. They are the underground connections. And I think in these times of isolation, it's really important to have that kind of energy. Like I can even kind of feel like all the little bumpy nodules of like different forms of reaching out in these roots. And there's not a lot of writing about licorice fern in Western medicine. It hasn't really been explored too much, but in Indigenous and First Nations cultures in the Pacific Northwest, it was used for sore throats and for colds and for putting under the tongue to make the water taste sweet. And I thought, well, how beautiful is that? We need things that taste sweet right now. So I think I'm gonna cut it up into smaller pieces. When you're making something like this, sort of the more surface area you can expose, the better, because you have a better chance for the alcohol to break down the tissues of the plant and extract what it's able to extract. And roots tend to be stronger and more potent than leaves or barks or stem. So just like sort of thinking about density of the bodies of the plant, I'm kind of just going by intuition, what I have here in terms of the proportions. You could tincture all of these separately and then make your blend afterwards. My intuition right now for what I'm making is that we need the synergy. We need everything working together. This is like a global event, so everything is going to be in the same glass. Now, this is a little more than I was expecting. I think I'm gonna go with half of it for now. I might change my mind later. No, I'm gonna change my mind right now. We're gonna go with all of it. The other things we have goldenrod. This isn't available right now, so I had some that was from last summer. And if I smell it, it still takes me back to the day in the farmer's field when barefoot I like walked among the honeybees and picked these flower heads. Goldenrod is an incarnation of the energy of the sun, of that like high vibrational frequency. It's a mirroring of the sun coming up from the earth. And that's what I want us to be right now. So this is going in. Other thing I love about goldenrod, I'm just checking my notes because I'm an intuitive person. I really like notes. Is that the Druids used it as a divining rod for finding water. And just the poetry of that, of needing other ways of navigation. It's also an antioxidant, and so it reduces inflammation in the body, which is something we also need right now. Again, probably going to use about half of this in what we're doing here. Next, sort of moving down my line, this is the Devil's Club. And so how this plant grows, if you're not familiar with it, is there's horizontal, these are sort of like larger rhizomes that grow along the top of the ground, and then these will grow the roots underneath. And from this, you get things, this would probably be a horizontal stem, and then the stems start to come up like this, and these are the parts that have the spines on them, and they'll grow as much as 6 or 8 feet tall, and then the leaves come out on the top like this, and there's berries. Just to give you an idea of what, I don't know if you can see even in the camera, of what we're working with. So you can use all parts of this plant except for the leaves and berries. They're quite poisonous. You can use the inner bark of these parts. So that means underneath this exterior, there's like the cambium. That's what carries the nutrients and the water flow through the plant. That's the part that we need. So these are like the little shoots. These are, to me, what feels most alive about this plant right now. So that's what we're going to work with. We want that life force. Like I can kind of feel it in my hands. Like these feel the most vital right now. And so again, we're going to kind of break them up into smaller parts. Now, this is me discovering, okay, we are a little bit still hard. So we're going to take the outer sort of layer off of these, and the woody interior we're going to leave behind. I'm actually going to pause in a minute. I'm going to do a little bit of this behind the scenes because you don't have to watch me. It's not that exciting. But just for a minute, the smell of this plant is amazing. It's one of its common names is North American ginseng. It's in the same family, and so it has the same properties. Again, of being an adaptogen. That's the main thing that calls me to it right now. It's also pain relieving and antiviral. And the feeling to me when I walk into a stand of Devil's Club is it's like being held in the heart of the earth. It feels like very ancient and very sacred. And so that feeling is what I want to put into this medicine. The other thing that we're going to add as well is willow. And willow is well known for having salicylic acid, which is the active component of aspirin. And again, it's found in the inner bark. So these are just starting to release their catkins. So that's the flower that's coming in, and after the flower will be the leaf. So these will be what will release the pollen. They'll be what will release the DNA to the next generation. Willow to me is an edge runner species. So it's one of the colonizers of vacant land. It's one of the first plants to come into riparian areas where there's been damage and hold the riverbank in place so other plants can come and grow. In terms of ecology, I feel like we're needing that resourceful, resilient riverbank medicine right now, that ability to be pliant and the ability to, in a single year, you know, this could be a single year's growth of that much height. And so as I was harvesting the willow, the word Leviathan came to me, which is sort of like speaking to those great heights, and not in terms of transcendence, because it's very rooted at the same time. So a marriage of the two. And again, what we want from this is we want the inner bark. So some people will like scrape off outside, I don't know if you can see, and then it will be like green underneath, and then it's that sort of inner growth is what we want. That's where the medicine is. And the reason why this is a really good time for this is you want to do it in the spring. So in the spring, the roots are releasing all their stores of glucose and nutrients and energy to come up to feed those catkins, to feed the seeds, to feed the DNA is released through the pollen. So this is, again, we're looking for life force. So life force right now is in the cambium, is in the bark. The leaves, when they come, are also active. There's lots of different parts of plants we can work with. Right now, in this moment, on this planet, this is what we have. This is the most potency available right now. So that's where we're going to. I'm going to pause while I finish prepping the rest of this, and then we'll come back in a moment to finish up. All right, so we are back. I have willow bark. You can see how that's shredded up. Now, I don't worry too much about separating the outer bark, the dark color portion, from the inner bark. You're still gonna have a lot of exposure, just like this, and that's gonna be okay. Most important thing for you to do is to smell. That's the first way that we're taking these beings in the making of this, and I feel like it's part of the appreciation as we go through the process, a part of like bringing our body here, which in its own way brings all of the relationship here in front of you, and all of our senses need to be involved in that. Now, you can see like this is just from this one stick. So I've clearly gathered a lot more than I need. That was on purpose. I'm going to actually dry the bark and save it. I use it for my horses when they're sore over the summer or the winter. And it's a really potent pain reliever. And I like the energetics of the medicine as well. So none of this is going to go to waste. This is part of our deal, you know, when we take something, is that it's treasured and it's carried and it's used and it's metabolized into something else. That's the point of these plants giving their lives for this. So that's the willow bark added in, and then I have, this is the Devil's Club. So this pile is from these little roots. You can see again that I haven't really made a dent in my supply. These I'm going to also take the bark from so that I can dry them again, so that I have them on hand. Spring and fall are the best times to harvest roots of this kind, and also this kind of the bark with that cambium layer. So these are things I'm going to keep on hand. So this is from those small roots. These pieces, you can see the difference in the texture. These ones are from the spiny part of the stem. So you can see I've just taken that little bit at the end. And that just gives us a slightly different, signature. It's a different expression of a different part of the plant. I want as much of the whole as I can in here today. So I'm going to add those. And you don't want to like pack it down. You want everything to kind of stay loose in there because we're going to be shaking it. And we want to circulate our alcohol in there. So we don't want it to be tight packed. This is not sauerkraut. Different kind of an adventure here. So I'm just gathering up little pieces that I'm finding here on my little carpet. Got those. Now, I'm going to just pause for a moment. I don't ever video this, ever. And I'm going to kind of wait and rest and see if there's something that I'm missing. So I'm just going to go quiet for a minute. And again, use that listening of that, you know, kind of potent emptiness to see if there's anything else that's needed before we move on to the next step. I don't close my eyes. I find that having the eyes shut, it's almost like it puts a barrier or a rigidity where I need there to be softness. What I did kind of intuit is that the elder that's outside on the porch right now really wants to be in this jar. And so this is something, so the elder tree that I'm referring to, it's the same bush that the berries come from that everyone's been talking about. The roots and the bark, again, as we've been saying, are a much more potent form of that same medicine. So in some of the research I've read, some people are like, it's poisonous, don't take it at all. Some people say it can induce vomiting, so you need to do a special decoction technique before you do a tincture. So I haven't quite made peace with that yet. I can hear the plant itself being like, put me in the jar! Like, it's really certain. Again, balancing that intuition, this kind of knowing with the resources we have to draw from, I think is really important. And because this is something I'm probably going to share with people, even if it's just giving to friends, I just want to be very careful. I think it's extremely important. And it's also, it's consideration of what's happening in this jar as well, as I wouldn't want to have that signature of fear or that concern attached to what's going on in here. So because right now I am the one who is physically doing this act in this moment, that is the decision I'm making. I'm sorry, Elder, I love you and you are included, just not quite yet. So next is our alcohol. Now, I was trying to get very nice Pemberton potato distilled vodka from the distillery. I kind of panicked yesterday and said, I'm gonna go and buy my White Lightning Max, 100 proof from the liquor store because I know it's available. Don't know how long it's gonna take to hear back from the distillery. Are they still in business? Of course, as I sat down to do this video, I got a message from them saying, oh, we have a liter for you. When do you want to come get it? I could have waited. What I have noticed is that we're being asked to let go of our notion of the way that things should be. I think everything should be sacred and perfect, and this just hasn't been part of what this process is. My initial gathering of usnea, I had soaking in a bowl on the porch overnight and a mouse drowned in it. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess this isn't going in. So I hiked it up the hill and left it on a boulder, and then went and gathered new usnea. And I just think that like the sacred has like crashed into the mundane, and we're just gonna roll with it. We're just gonna go with what we have. So what we have is white lightning vodka. We're gonna do it. The reason why we want 100 proof. So here's an important thing. Proof is not the same as the percentage of alcohol volume. So this is 50%. If you can get as close to that as you can, that means you have 100 proof. That's going to give you the most or the strongest extract. So what we're looking for the alcohol to do is to dissolve the parts of the plant we can't metabolize, and to release the parts of the plant whose medicines we do want. So that's kind of my prayer for what we're doing right now. We're going to soak these in the vodka for 2 weeks is the minimum. A month is better. Some people like to do it on a lunar cycle. We're going to leave that little bit of headroom, just like we were canning. We want everything to just be submerged. We don't need more than that. So if I only had half of a jar of plant matter, I would just fill it to the top of the plant matter. This is a lot. This is going to be like so many humans worth of tincture. Like this is more than I would usually ever make. But these are somewhat unprecedented times. So we're just going to go with it. So that's our really beautiful layer cake. It looks like this. And we're going to put it in a dark place, and we're going to move it a couple of times a day. We don't have to like shake it like we're making butter in a jar. We just have to kind of like get the alcohol to move a little bit through the plant matter. Again, we're trying to like get all of that surface area exposed. So that just kind of gives us a little wave inside our jar. I will later finish this off by giving it a name. And I don't have it yet. This is part of why sharing this as a process is a challenge. It's never something that's like definite, it's an evolution. So right now, I'm gonna leave this like this. I'm gonna go about my day. I'm gonna clean up these guys, and we'll see how this evolves. So that is the preparation of what is in our jar. So thank you to all of the beings who have come here to be part of this process.